It's January 7th, 2020. This is a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with the Acadiana Advocate. Their team of journalists print the stories important to our community and state, and we are happy to read you some of those stories. You can hear local news live Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on AOC 1, the AOC Community Media channel on YouTube, and on Cypress Street Radio at aocinc.org/CS radio. You can find the print version of these stories and more at theadvocate.com. We couldn't bring you this community service without the generosity of our volunteer newsreaders. Today, my name is Matt Roberts, and I will be your reader. And we start off as usual with Acadiana News today. And our top story in the Acadiana News Department is parents vent frustrations over school bus service. Driver absences and communication woes cited. This story is by Katie Gagliano, a staff writer for The Advocate. The return from Christmas break began with frustration for some Lafayette Parish school system families when nearly a dozen school bus drivers were absent, leaving routes unmanned and parents in the dark after a communication glitch left some without notice of the transportation changeup. Jennifer Gardner, school system chief administrative officer, said 11 buses representing about 4% of the district's drivers were out Monday. Not all schools serviced by the absent drivers were without bus transportation as the district adjusted staffing, but it was not clear Wednesday how many routes went uncovered. It's unclear how many students were affected by the drivers' absences. Because middle and high school students are on a hybrid attendance schedule, changing the number of students that ride the buses each day, Gardner said. She would not comment on the reasons behind the bus drivers' absences or if COVID-19 protocols, such as close contact quarantines, played a role in the number of absences. On Facebook, parents circulated a photo of an email exchange between a parent and a school system employee. The staff member's reply said, due of number of COVID-related absences, bus drivers were in short supply, and it was possible her child's route would not be staffed for several days. Gardner said she could not divulge if COVID-19 exposure contributed to absences because of medical privacy issues. No matter what it is, we absolutely do our best to have everything covered, whether it's having a bus driver picking up extra run, pulling in substitutes. The last thing we want to do is not have a bus run, Gardner said. Our staff works really, really hard on that. We always have a plan to try and get every single route covered. That is our ultimate goal, she said. Coronavirus related or not, parents expressed frustration online after some did not receive notice that buses would not be available until the buses were no-shows at their children's stops. By sharing with one another, parents and guardians pieced together information about expected bus absences and the scope of how many buses were out. Lori Lightfoot's family was one of those left in the dark. Lightfoot's husband was waiting with his daughter at her Johnson Street bus stop Monday when transportation service never showed. Eventually, Lightfoot's husband drove the Paulboro 7th grader to school. Lightfoot said Tuesday afternoon she never received a phone call, email, or other message from the school district acknowledging the bus would be absent or providing information about how prolonged the bus run would be unmanned. She said she received a message in the past and has confirmed her child's bus number with her school after a change at the beginning of the school year. Lightfoot said she learned about the bus's possible extended outage only because of parent exchanges on Facebook. If I wasn't part of that group, I would not know this, and I'd be sitting at the bus stop tomorrow waiting and waiting to see what was going to happen. Lightfoot said Tuesday, it's very frustrating with LPSS. This is generally how we get information. They'll either put something out at the last possible second or parents tell each other through these online groups. It's kind of ridiculous that the parents are having to do that, she said. She says the bus issue is representative of a larger communication issue between the school district and parents. Lightfoot said she's sympathetic to the additional strain and challenges the pandemic has placed on the school system. However, if coronavirus-related absences played a role in this week's bus issue, the district should have been adequately prepared after months of planning. Lightfoot said she's sure the district has been working to prepare for issues like large numbers of absent drivers, but when those efforts are not proactively communicated to families, it feels like nothing is happening. Gardner said the district discovered a technical glitch in its notification system that prevented some parents from receiving notifications. The administrator said staffing schedules are staggered to ensure nighttime and early morning notifications are sent to families when bus drivers are absent last minute. Notifications were sent Monday, she said. Gardner said parents with continued difficulty receiving district communications should check their contact information in the online parent portal or verify the information with their child's school. And in more Acadiana news, pharmacies get more vaccine doses. Governor Edwards, all parishes to be included next week. This story is by Sam Carlin, a staff writer. Thousands more doses of COVID-19 vaccine will be distributed to pharmacies across the state next week, with Governor John Bel Edwards promising the speed of the immunization effort will improve and that each parish will have a provider offering shots to those 70 and older. In all, Louisiana expects nearly 56,000 additional doses next week, split about equally between Pfizer's and Moderna's vaccines, and 18,700 of the Moderna doses will be diverted to nursing homes through a federal program. The remaining Moderna doses will be combined with between 10,000 and 15,000 unused doses that have been left on the shelves of the state's distributor to distribute to pharmacies and other providers, said Dr. Joe Cantor, the state health officer. Still, older adults who signed up for waiting lists at one of the 107 pharmacies that received vaccines this week may still be waiting through the next week. Cantor said he can't promise each of those 107 pharmacies will get another shipment of doses immediately. Instead, Edwards promised to expand the pool of pharmacies and other providers to include every parish, not only the 52 parishes included in the pharmacy program this week. We will have more locations across the state that will receive the Moderna vaccine and will be administered to individuals over 70 than we had this week, Edwards said. I have instructed Department of Health Secretary Courtney Phillips to make sure that we are in all 64 parishes, not necessarily with a pharmacy, but with a provider. It may be a clinic, it may be a hospital, but there will be some doses available for this priority group next week in all 64 parishes. People 70 and older, and a list of additional health workers, such as those at outpatient clinics, were able to start accessing the vaccine at pharmacies and hospitals this week. But appointments immediately filled up as thousands flooded the phone lines of providers. Demand has far exceeded supply after the state expanded the priority group to include older adults and healthcare workers. That was an abrupt change from recent weeks when health workers were slow to take advantage of the vaccinations at some facilities, leading to a sluggish start to the state's mass vaccination effort. Staying on the wait list is good. Cantor advised people who are eligible and waiting for the vaccine. Waiting until the next round of allocations is made public and continue to call and make appointments. This will get better and better each week. In addition to pharmacies, the health department this week also told hospitals to immediately start vaccinating people beyond health workers if they have the supply. Ochsner and Franciscan missionaries of Our Lady of Health Systems were among those to start inoculating patients this week. Our Lady of the Lake Regional Medical Center, part of the Franciscan missionary system, started administering vaccines at its North Baton Rouge campus early Wednesday to patients 70 and older, following the health department guidance. Dr. Catherine O'Neill, infectious disease specialist at Our Lady of the Lake, said she was battling false rumors about the vaccine that led to hesitancy among staff last month. The wariness of this vaccine, especially from social media myths, has been difficult, and it's hard to argue against something that has no scientific basis, O'Neill said in a media call Wednesday. Ochsner Chief Medical Officer Robert Hart said on a call Wednesday that many employees wanted to wait until other colleagues received the vaccine before getting their shot. Cantor said so far, providers have reported wasting 147 doses of the vaccine, the bulk of which, 120 doses, were due to a refrigerator at Home Healthcare 2000 Incorporated in Baton Rouge going out during bad weather last week, leading to doses being stored at higher temperatures than is safe. Meanwhile, COVID-19 is surging in Louisiana, leading to nearly 2,000 hospitalizations and more disease circulating in the state than ever before. And Emotional Edwards employed residents to adhere to the restrictions in place, raising his voice at times and saying, "We have to do better." "The hospital is full of people who didn't believe it was that serious," Edwards said. "Go ask them." The governor's restrictions expire next Wednesday, and he is expected to hold a news conference to announce what the next stage of restrictions will look like. And Governor Edwards will hold that news conference next week. All right, and some more Acadiana news. UL system leadership to stay vigilant. Following coronavirus guidelines is a top priority. This article is by Ken Stickney. James Carter's tenure as a chairperson of the University of Louisiana System Board will begin Thursday with a pledge to stay the course for now. The New Orleans lawyer said the 9-institution system continues to weather the pandemic and, in isolated cases, the 2020 hurricanes by sticking to a tight plan developed by system president and CEO Jim Henderson and the Board of Supervisors, which he will lead for 2 years beginning Thursday. That plan includes following the science surrounding COVID-19, adhering to health guidelines to protect students, faculty, and staff, and offering full course loads through myriad platforms until the threat of COVID lifts. "We have to stay vigilant," he said. "The guidelines have been orchestrated by the government and have had success at the universities." He said he is proud of those successes in the state's largest university system, with institutions dispersed around the state. The system enrolls about 92,000 students and graduates some 16,000 students annually. "We have provided quality education, even in light of this," he said, "of daunting challenges since the pandemic was declared in March. Some would have thought that COVID would have paralyzed institutions. It did not. We've graduated thousands of students who are contributing to the economy of the state. We are most proud of that." But Carter said the board and UL system are pursuing more than the status quo. The system's institutions continue to generate new academic programs, such as the Master's in Industrial Chemistry launched at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and they will try to afford new opportunities for students and faculty. Carter said his wife, a 27-year educator, touts providing opportunity, exposure, and experiences for students, something the new board chair says the system should do. That, he said, would be his fondest hope for his own tenure. "My goal as the chair is to maximize that," he said. "Imagine big. We need to talk about bringing relationships with world-class institutions to bear to give students the opportunity to travel. We need platforms for more scholars to come here. We need to find successful people to come back here and share. We are looking forward to really opening up the limits of our imagination. We want students to think big, nationally, globally, to fully realize their potential." More immediately, he said, the institutions will carry on, most likely with hybrid or remote learning, through the pandemic's duration. Some things might change as the vaccine is administered, but he said that's unlikely until the fall. For now, he said, the board should follow Henderson's leadership, continuing after the supervisors take office at 1 p.m. Thursday during a Zoom conference meeting. The Advocate reported Wednesday that the governor placed his nephew and former law partner Bradley Stevens on the board. Carter said Tuesday that the governor has placed great folks on the board who care about Louisiana faculty, staffs, and universities. "The board is doing fine," Carter said. "It's a difficult job, but times are tough for people right now." With everything that's happening in the world today, it can be difficult to know which sources of information are reliable and trustworthy. The Center for Media Literacy, or CML, is dedicated to a new vision of literacy for the 21st century. The ability to communicate competently in all media forms, as well as to access, understand, analyze, evaluate, and participate with powerful images, words, and sounds that make up our contemporary mass media culture. CML has 5 key questions for media literacy. 1. Authorship. Who created this message? Format. Techniques. What techniques are used to attract my attention? Audience. How might others interpret this message differently? Content framing. What values, lifestyles, and points of view are represented in or omitted from this message? Purpose. Why is this message being sent? Using these questions establishes habits of mind that create a foundation for lifelong learning. You can find out more at medialit.org. And continuing on with Acadiana news, virus outbreak rapidly worsens. Acadiana cases increase by 45%. This story is by Ben Myers. Acadiana's post-holiday coronavirus outbreak is rapidly worsening, with positivity rates shooting up to July levels and showing no sign of slowing down. The Louisiana Department of Health on Wednesday reported a 13.6 positivity rate in the 7-parish region for the week ending on December 30th. That is a sharp increase from the 10.6% mark of the previous week and the highest since July 29th. The health department reports positivity every Wednesday with a week lag based on test results that are allocated to the dates that specimens were collected. The department's daily data reports are based on results as labs report them, typically within a few days that tests were taken. The daily reports since December 30th indicate positivity is continuing to spiral, though it will not be clear by how much until the next weekly report. The number of newly reported cases over 7 days through January 6th increased by 45% from the previous 7-day period, nearly tripling the increase in new test results. The proportion of tests reported since December 30th that resulted in new cases was 12.4%, marking an increase of more than 2 points over the previous 7 days. The state does not report positivity based on a case-to-test ratio. Instead, it calculates the percentage of all tests with the conclusive results that are positive. These include people who test positive multiple times, which is not uncommon within a short time frame. As a result, weekly positivity rates are typically higher than case-to-test ratios, but the two measurements typically rise and fall in similar patterns. The case-to-test ratios in the weekly date of test report on Wednesday, which looks back to December 30th without accounting for what has happened since, provide the most ominous signs of an outbreak accelerating at a potentially unprecedented pace. The Acadiana region and its largest population hub, Lafayette Parish, each set new case-to-test records through December 30th, surpassing the highest marks of July. COVID-19 hospitalizations, meanwhile, continue to show week-over-week increases, though not yet at rates that reflect the alarming rise of infection rates. As of January 5th, the most recent date of available data, there were 218 inpatients, marking a 6.9 increase over December 29th. The severe fall of hospitalization spike peaked at 226 on December 2nd, well below the July peak of more than 300. But hospitals were not allowed much time to recover from the fall spike before the holiday cases increased. Gradual reductions in the regional hospital census of COVID-19 patients over the second half of December bottomed out the day after Christmas at 172 inpatients. Week-over-week increases have been reported for 8 straight days. KBN News, security cameras are under scrutiny at the Lafayette Consolidated Council, or the Lafayette City and Parish Council, City Council. Attorney says image use should be limited. This story's by Claire Taylor. Lafayette Assistant City Parish Attorney Mike Hebert on Tuesday said a contract should be amended to ensure images from security cameras provided free by a local company are only used for law enforcement purposes. Hebert was responding to city council members' questions and concerns about a no-bid contract Parish Mayor President Josh Guillory signed, allowing a private company to install free security cameras for the police department's use while the company retains ownership of all photos and video. Guillory, without advising or seeking approval from the city council, signed an agreement November 24th with Crime Fighters of Louisiana, a Lafayette company whose sole owner is Hewitt Brooks Bernard. The police department will determine where to install the cameras, such as high crime areas, and will have free access to the data, but the cameras and images will be owned by Crime Fighters. Hebert said Guillory is not required to seek bids because the Crime Fighters agreement is a service contract which doesn't have to be bid. Only public works projects, such as construction or purchase of materials, require bids, he said. The general principle of the 4-year contract that expires November 24th, 2024, Hebert said, is for law enforcement alone to use data collected by the cameras. Some provisions in the contract, he admitted, are a little broad and could be interpreted to allow some unintentional non-law enforcement uses. Councilman Glenn Lazard, who returned Tuesday from a lengthy absence while being treated for leukemia, said as an attorney he was concerned to hear Hebert say the images are supposed to be used only for law enforcement purposes. Some language in the agreement can and should be revised to clarify the images will be used for only law enforcement purposes, Hebert said. There's a severability provision in the contract that says if any part is found invalid or unenforceable, the contract can be reformed or automatically modified to comply with the law, Hebert said. Also, just part of the contract can be severed or the entire contract can be terminated, he said. The Home Rule Charter gives Guillory authority to enter into a contract without the council's permission if the items are specifically identified in the budget, Hebert said. The budget contains line item expenses for police department cameras, telecommunication costs, and neighborhood security. A 2015 contract in which the city purchased $700,000 worth of security cameras for the police department relied on that provision in the charter, Hebert said. Newly elected council chairperson Liz Hebert, however, questioned whether the Crime Fighters cameras were what Guillory intended when he placed those line items in the 2020-21 budget. Guillory said he did not know specifically he would enter this agreement, but intended to use the money for security. Responding to media reports that Crime Fighters needs a license to install the cameras, after reviewing state statutes and state fire marshal's office regulations, Mike Hebert said he believes it is questionable that a license is required. Either way, it is not the city's fight, he said. All right, and now we're at about the mid-show time, so it's time for us to take a little break from the news, and we'll hear some entertainment or trivia features. Again, reported by the same paper, we have Today in History, and this is actually compiled by the Associated Press. Today is Thursday, January 7th, the 7th day of 2021. There are 300... Sorry about that. Hang on, lost my place there. right, here we go. There are 358 days left in the year. Today's highlight in history: on January 7th, 1789, America held its first presidential election as voters chose electors who, a month later, selected George Washington to be the nation's first chief executive. On this date in 1927, commercial transatlantic telephone service was inaugurated between New York and London. In 1942, Japanese forces began besieging American and Filipino troops in Bataan during World War II. The fall of Bataan 3 months later was followed by the notorious Death March. In 1953, President Truman announced in his State of the Union message to Congress that the United States had developed a hydrogen bomb. In 1959, the United States recognized the new government of Cuba, 6 days after Fidel Castro led the overthrow of Fulgencio Batista. In 1972, Lewis F. Powell Jr. and William H. Rehnquist were sworn in as the 99th and 100 members of the U.S. Supreme Court. In 1979, Vietnam forces captured the Cambodian capital of Phnom Penh, overthrowing the Khmer Rouge government. In 1989, Emperor Hirohito of Japan died in Tokyo at age 87. He was succeeded by his son, Crown Prince Akito. In 1999, for the second time in history, an impeached American president went on trial before the Senate. President Bill Clinton faced charges of perjury and obstruction of justice. He was acquitted. In 2006, U.S. Representative Tom DeLay, Republican Texas, facing corruption charges, stepped down as House Majority Leader. DeLay was found guilty in November 2010 of illegally funneling corporate money to Texas candidates. His conviction was eventually overturned. In 2015, masked gunmen stormed the Paris offices of Charlie Hebdo, a French newspaper that had caricatured the Prophet Muhammad, methodically killing 12 people, including the editor, before escaping in a car. 2 suspects were killed 2 days later. In 2019, for the first time in more than 25 years, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was absent from oral arguments as she recuperated from cancer surgery. 10 years ago, a package addressed to Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano ignited at Washington Postal Facility, a day after fiery packages sent to Maryland's governor and state transportation secretary burned the fingers of workers who opened them. 5 years ago, President Barack Obama tore into the National Rifle Association during a televised town hall meeting in Fairfax, Virginia, as he dismissed what he called a conspiracy, alleging that the federal government, and Obama in particular, wanted to seize all firearms as the precursor to imposing martial law. 1 year ago, a magnitude 6.4 earthquake, the strongest to hit Puerto Rico in more than 100 years, killed 1 person, injured 9 others, and knocked out power across the U.S. territory. And today's birthdays: magazine publisher Jan Winter is 75. Singer Kenny Loggins is 73. Danger Zone. Singer-songwriter Marshall Chapman is 72. Actor Aaron Gray is 71. Actor Sammo Hung is 69. Actor Jody Long is 67. Actor David Caruso is 65. Talk show host Katie Couric is 64. Country singer David Lee Murphy is 62. Rock musician Kathy Valentine is 62. Actor David Marciano is 61. Senator John Thune, Republican, South Dakota, is 60. Actor Holly Todd is 59. Senator Rand Paul, Republican, Kentucky, is 58. Actor Nicolas Cage is 57. Singer-songwriter John Ondrasik, Five for Fighting, is 56. Actor Rex Lee is 52. Actor Doug E. Doug is 51. Actor Kevin Rahm is 50. Actor Jeremy Renner is 50. Country singer-musician John Rich is 47. Actor Dustin Diamond is 44. Actor Reggie Austin is 42, and singer-rapper Aloe Black is 42. right, up next in our mid-show break, we will have our horoscope, or the zodiac. So here we go. Capricorns, December 22nd through January 19th. An emotional situation regarding a friend, relative, or peer will leave you in a vulnerable position. Be careful how you handle your financial, health, or legal matters. Aquarius, emotional spending will leave you in a vulnerable financial position. Reconnecting with someone special will bring back a lot of memories. Devote more attention to your health and appearance. Pisces, take control of your situations quickly before someone steps in. Use your insight to tap into what's trending and you will figure out a way to bring in more cash. Aries, uncertainty will prevail regarding your relationship with someone who can influence your chance to advance. Diplomacy and charm will work wonders. Don't be manipulative or sly. Taurus, put more time and effort into meaningful relationships, whether you are dealing with a romantic partner, friend, relative, or colleague. How you treat others will determine what you will get in return. Gemini, May 21st through June 20th, be careful what you reveal about your personal life. Someone will be eager to use your sensitive information to make you look bad. Be a good listener and ask questions. Focus on a healthy lifestyle. Cancer, take more time to sort through documents. An investment contract or medical issue will require immediate attention. Someone you have helped will return the favor. Leo, concentrate on personal improvements and getting ahead professionally. Set up virtual interviews or meetings that will allow you to present what you have to offer. Control your emotions. Virgo, keep an open mind. Learn from an expert. Stick to a tight budget and don't be indulgent. A romantic situation will have ulterior motives attached. Libra. Think matters through, then make necessary changes. Make adjustments at home that encourage you to pursue something lucrative or save money. Avoid joint ventures and imprudent spending. Scorpio. Someone will reveal a secret. Refuse to let your emotions take charge. Listen carefully and use insight to help navigate your way through troubled times. Take charge. Sagittarius, money matters will cause friction with a friend. Avoid getting into a joint venture with someone who talks big but offers little. Gather information. The horoscope is an entertainment feature. It's not based on scientific fact. All right, and we'll get back into state news now. And the Advocate reports from the state. Louisiana schools get $1.2 billion to combat coronavirus. This is by Will Sintel, a staff writer for the Advocate. Louisiana public schools will get $1.2 billion from the latest federal stimulus bill, about 4 times the amount schools landed last year to combat the coronavirus pandemic, officials said Wednesday. This is an incredible influx of funding into our state, and we have to make sure it is used thoughtfully, transparently, and effectively, State Superintendent of Education Cade Brumley said. The money coming to the state is the 13th most among the 50 states, plus the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. Schools collected $287 million in the spring of 2020 from the $2.2 trillion federal rescue package called the CARES Act. That package included $30 billion for both public schools and colleges and universities. The latest round totaled $77 billion for education, including $54 billion for public schools and $23 billion for colleges. Louisiana colleges and universities are in line to get $268 million from the latest aid plan, officials said in December. Brumley said the money will go directly to school districts statewide. First and foremost, the dollars have to be used to safely reopen schools and ensuring they stay open, he said. Beyond that, we should have the opportunity with these funds to intervene in learning loss and hopefully to accomplish additional educational endeavors that will be important for kids. About 720,000 students attended public schools in Louisiana. Classrooms were shuttered in March of 2020 during the first wave of the pandemic, forcing districts to suddenly resort to district learning and major gaps in the number of students with laptops or tablets and internet connectivity at home. Many schools reopened in August, but there have been periodic closures in the Baton Rouge area and elsewhere amid spikes in the number of positive cases. About 60% of students are attending in-person classes. The rest depends on either virtual learning or a combination of virtual and in-person classes. The upheavals in the previous and current school years have sparked concerns about what impact the interruptions are having on student learning. Some studies say students have fallen 6 months or more behind where they should be in some such subjects. Brumley, a longtime advocate of students returning to the classroom, said he does not think students here have suffered as much learning loss as in other areas. Like the first round of aid in 2020, the latest assistance is expected to help finance summer school classes aimed at addressing the academic interruptions. Officials of the State Department of Education plan to unveil an aggressive tutoring program for the spring. We have to be aggressive to make sure that our kids recover from school building closures, Brumley said. They are critical years, and we have to make sure we are intervening so that this does not create a generational problem, he said. Wes Watts, superintendent of the West Baton Rouge Parish School District, said Wednesday addressing potential learning loss will likely be his district's top priority with the federal dollars. The first round of education assistance in 2020 included $10 million for child care centers. Child care is in line to get $193 million this time, according to Libby Saunier, executive director of the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children. Most centers in Louisiana have reopened after about 2/3 were closed last year because of the pandemic, sparking huge financial losses for operators. How much private schools will get is unclear. A Washington, D.C. group called Good Jobs First, which calls itself a national policy resource center that promotes accountability and economic development, said private and charter schools have gotten much more federal aid than public schools because they qualify for payroll protection program loans in addition to direct aid. And in more state news, special elections set for House seats by Sam Carlin, staff writer. Governor John Bel Edwards on Wednesday called special elections for 2 vacant U.S. House seats, setting the contest for March 20th with April runoffs if necessary. Edwards received Democratic Congressman Cedric Richmond's resignation Tuesday, he said at a news conference. Qualifying for the election, during which candidates sign up and pay the fees, will take place January 20th through 22nd. The 2nd Congressional District covers parts of 10 parishes, including most of New Orleans, in a section of Jefferson Parish, and extends up the Mississippi River to take in neighborhoods largely in North Baton Rouge. The district was drawn as the state's only one in which minorities are the majority. Of the 530,796 registered voters, 61% are black and 63% are Democratic. 45% of the voters live in Orleans Parish and 12% live in East Baton Rouge Parish. Richmond, a Democrat who lives in New Orleans East, announced on November 17th that he would be leaving Congress to become director of the White House's Office of Public Engagement. He had served as an advisor to President-elect Joe Biden during Joe Biden's successful run for president. The other seat was left open by the death of Congressman-elect Luke Letlow, who died in late December from complications of COVID-19, weeks after being elected to the 5th Congressional District seat, which is being vacated by retiring Republican U.S. Representative Ralph Abraham. Letlow, also a Republican, served as chief of staff to Abraham and beat out State Rep. Lance Harris, a Republican of Alexandria, in a runoff earlier this month to replace Abraham on a 62% to 38% vote. The 5th District is mostly rural district that encompasses 24 parishes and extends from Bastrop in far northeast Louisiana through Bunkie south of Alexandria to Opelousas, which is north of Lafayette, then east past St. Francisville over to Bogalusa in the Florida parishes. Of the 491,128 registered voters, 64% of those are white and 35% are Republican. 22% of the voters live in Wichita Parish and 18% live in Rapides Parish. And I'm sure most of you heard about the national news yesterday, how a mob of people broke into the Capitol while the Congress was counting the electoral votes, but they did finish up. I actually woke up just in time to see it this morning. They did finish counting, and Vice President Pence did announce that Joe Biden did win the 2020 election. And so on January 20th, I think it's finally settled. We will have a new administration coming into office. But it was quite a spectacle yesterday. I'm sure you all know, and we do local news here. So here is our local state politicians responding to what happened on the Capitol yesterday. And of course, you can read more about what happened at theadvocate.com. This story is Cassidy Kennedy condemn hooligans, quote, mob. Louisiana lawmakers react to rioters storming U.S. Capitol. This story is by Tyler Bridges. U.S. Senators Bill Cassidy and John Kennedy and other Republican lawmakers from Louisiana condemned the mob that broke into the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday, egged on by GOP President Donald Trump's unsubstantiated assertions that the presidential election was stolen from him. There are people who have violently entered the U.S. Capitol and are attempting to disrupt today's proceedings, Cassidy tweeted. This is supposed to be a peaceful transition of power. What they're doing is absolutely wrong. It's un-American. This is about our country. It's not about the hooligans, Cassidy said on Twitter. The lawmakers were reacting to chaotic protests that breached the Capitol, inflamed by an angry speech earlier in the day by Trump. In response, Capitol Police rushed lawmakers from the building amid a Republican challenge to Democrat Joe Biden's margin of victory in the Electoral College. Representative Steve Scalise of Jefferson was more muted in his comments about the pro-Trump insurgents while referring to the 2017 shooting that left him unable to walk for months. United States Capitol Police saved my life, said Scalise, the number 2 Republican in the House. Attacks on law enforcement officers trying to do their jobs are never acceptable, period. We can passionately protest without being violent, Scalise said. Scalise was planning to vote to overturn Biden's victory along with Kennedy, Representative Clay Higgins, Republican Lafayette, and Representative Mike Johnson, Republican Benton. Kennedy tweeted a strong statement. I condemn this violent assault on the democratic process and will not be intimidated by a mob that confuses chaos and destruction with strength and wisdom. How Kennedy might be intimidated wasn't clear considering his plan to challenge the Electoral College tally. Reflecting the heated passions, more than 1,500 people commented on Kennedy's Facebook post of his statement, with many excoriating him. You should take full responsibility for encouraging this nonsense, posted Roxanne Newman. You should be ashamed of yourself for encouraging and supporting the baseless claims and letting this idiocy go too far. But Denise Crane-Heron replied to Newman, if you feel fraud didn't take place, you have your head in the sand. Johnson tweeted that he unambiguously condemned in the strongest possible terms any and all forms of violent protest. Any individual who committed violence today should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. It is beyond time to remember that while we may disagree, we are all Americans, and there's far more that unites us than divides us. Higgins also decried what happened at the U.S. Capitol. Violence and lawlessness are unacceptable, he said. This must end now. This is not American. Governor John Bel Edwards, a Democrat, said it was sad and tragic, regrettable what's happening in Washington right now. Katie Bernhardt, chair of the Louisiana Democratic Party, lit into Republicans. We are witnessing a seditious riot at the U.S. Capitol, building intent on disrupting the peaceful transition of power that has characterized our democracy since its founding, Bernhardt said. This embarrassing display betrays the principles that brave Americans have sacrificed their lives to defend. Sadly, Louisiana Senator John Kennedy and Representatives Steve Scalise, Mike Johnson, and Clay Higgins enabled this un-American act. Cassidy is the only Republican in Louisiana's congressional delegation who said he is planning to acknowledge Biden's win in the November 3rd election. This is an attempt to disrupt a constitutionally ordered process, he said on ABC News. It's what happens in third world countries. It should not be happening in the United States of America. As soon as this Capitol is cleared, it would be my vote to go back into that chamber and finish this process, which, again, side note, they did do last night / this morning. Representative Garrett Greaves, Republican Baton Rouge, stands out because he hasn't yet disclosed how he plans to vote on accepting the Electoral College numbers. Graves was the last Republican member of the congressional delegation to post his reaction to the mob attack. The violence, attacks on law enforcement, and destruction of property we saw today from the mobs is unacceptable, un-American, and they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, he said. Representative Cedric Richmond of New Orleans is planning to join all other Democrats in certifying Biden's victory. Richmond is about to resign from the House to take a senior position in Biden's White House. Louisiana's other congressional district, which includes Monroe, Alexandria, and Bogalusa, is vacant after the death in late December of Congressman-elect Luke Letlow. Staff writer Brooks Kubina contributed to this report. And in sports news today, UL women face another stiff road test at Little Rock. This is by Kevin Foote, a staff writer for The Advocate. UL coach Gary Broadhead knows what his record says. Officially, the Ragin' Cajuns are 2-5 overall and 1-1 in Sunbelt play after splitting a pair at Texas State last weekend. His goals, though, remain extremely high, despite hitting the road against to begin another road league series at 6:30 p.m. against Little Rock on Friday. If we can split and maybe get a sweep every now and then on the road, but win every game at home, I think that would put us in pretty good position, Broadhead said. It certainly would, but the toughest of all road challenges may be this weekend in Little Rock. The Trojans are 5-4 overall. And 1-1 in league play. Two of their losses were to Arkansas and Texas A&M, as well as Rice, 66-54, which also beat UL 83-51. Coach Joe Foley finds a way to win, and he doesn't change it. He's not going to press. He's going to hard hedge all of our ball screens. He's going to be in help. His defensive team is what creates all those wins for him. They have a quicker point guard. He made a statement. It's the fastest point guard he's ever had, so that's kind of scary. She's a little bit on the smaller side, he said. While Little Rock essentially played the same game twice, first beating UTA 57-56 and then losing the rematch 59-54, UL's two games were very different. The Cajuns lost 71-63 in the opener before handling Texas State 67-41 in the second game. Applying full court pressure in the rematch is what did the trick for UL. UTA was able to kind of press them, which is what we're trying to do, Broadhead said. Hopefully we can get them to turn over a little bit and make their point guard play a little too fast. UL's first weekend was highlighted by Brandy Williams with a pair of 18-point performances. It helps when you have somebody going 4-4-6 from the 3, Broadhead said. She's got a lot of open looks in transition, so that was pretty big for us. Perhaps the biggest new development was the play Saturday of junior guard Destiny McAfee, who took very well to full court pressure with 15 points. In that defense, Tyriana Duce is on the ball because she's long and she makes those passes to where they kind of have to get it over her. But Duce missed both games at Texas State with an upper body injury. Duce is expected back this weekend, but McAfee flourishes in that role. She's the fastest kid that I've seen in a long time, Broadhead said. She can jump and she's good on the ball. That was a big plus for us. We had kind of been waiting for her. I had been seeing it in practice, but we just hadn't had it in a game yet from here. I think the light bulb kind of went off. We have to put her in when we're pressing and probably put her on the ball. Sophomore transfer and former Lafayette Christian standout Braelle Porter also saw some action at the Texas State with good results. Bree did a really good job in the second game, Broadhead said. She started to kind of feel a little more comfortable. On Saturday, I thought she helped a lot. She did a pretty good job in the post, and at the high post, she did a good job of passing and getting the ball to people. Despite the slow start to the season record-wise, Broadhead isn't even close to panicking. He wasn't the least bit surprised how convincing Saturday's road win was. Our team, sometimes we play better with our backs against the wall, he said. I guess that's the culture we have over the 9 years. I haven't had a team that really gives us, I think, that's a big part of what we're about. I think the 10 days kind of hurt us a little, but after we got on the bike and started riding again, we felt a little more comfortable, he said. And our funerals in the Acadiana area today. Joseph Berry Jr. will be laid to rest at St. Charles Borromeo Roman Catholic Church at 10 a.m. The obituary office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can phone the Advocate Obituaries Department at 225-388-0289 or contact them directly at obits at the Acadiana Advocate or at theadvocate.com, excuse me. And this has been Local News Live for January 7th, 2020. I've been your reader, Matt Roberts. You can join us 9 a.m. Monday through Friday on AOC 1, Cypress Street Radio, or the AOC Community Media channel on YouTube. You can read these stories and more at theadvocate.com, and you can find out how to volunteer and more at aocinc.org. Since we just have a little more time in the news, we'll go ahead and read you all those 5 key concepts that we got from the Center for Media Literacy. And again, this is if you're having any trouble sort of distinguishing which news sources are trustworthy or which stories or articles or piece of media are giving you good information. We follow this here at AOC as well. It's one of our big core principles is media literacy and educating people to be better, smarter media consumers and more empowered to access information wisely. So your 5 key questions are, again, you can apply this to any media, movie, news article, TV show, whatever. Authorship, who created this message? So who's behind the message? That's the first question to ask. Format and techniques. What techniques are used to attract my attention? So is it flashy? Does it sound great? People wearing suits to increase their credibility? What formats or techniques are there. Audience, how might others interpret this message differently? So right when you filter a message in, you take it in, you access it a certain way. How might another audience see it? Content and framing, what values, lifestyles, and points of view are represented in or omitted from this message? And then purpose, why is this message being sent? Okay, and you can use those questions to establish a habit of mind that creates a foundation for lifelong learning. You can find out more at medialit.org, or you can go to aocinc.org, contact us, and we will send you the right way. Thanks for listening to Local News Live.